My name is Sophie. I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Edward, who's the same age as me, for 8 years. We both have jobs and live a dual-income lifestyle. We don't have any children. There's no dissatisfaction in our life together. We enjoy every day. However, there was one concern in our marriage. Edward was my college classmate. We started dating after talking at orientation. Both from Philadelphia, we bonded over our shared unease with urban college life. We shared similar interests and hit it off quickly. It turns out I was Edward's first girlfriend, and he was incredibly attentive. I felt more cherished by him than by any other man before. Since we were such a close couple, we got married right after graduating. Our closeness didn't change, even after we started living together. Before marriage, we used to visit each other's homes often, spending most of our time together. Moving in felt natural. However, sometime after we started living together, I began to feel a distance between us. The physical affection we used to share naturally diminished, and Edward started going straight to bed after returning from work. I tried initiating intimacy, but he would decline, saying he was tired. It takes courage to try again after being turned down once. Since then, I knew I had to do something about our relationship, but couldn't bring myself to act. We weren't on bad terms, but it wasn't like our college days either. I wanted to talk to someone about it, but it was a delicate matter, and I didn't have anyone to confide in. I felt a sense of lack, but couldn't restore our marital relationship. In the midst of this, another issue arose. "Hello, Sophie?" Calls from Edward's mother, Monica, were frequent. Her words were hard for me to hear at the time. "It's been a while since you got married. No grandkids yet. I'm eager to see my grandchildren." Yes, I was under pressure from my mother-in-law, Monica, to have children. Her regular calls about having kids were disheartening. "Well, I think it's about time to, but we don't have plans yet." "No plans? When will it be then? If you take it slow, before you know it, you'll be too old to have children." "The problem lies with your son." I never said that. Instead, I just nodded along to Monica's words. I couldn't reveal our marital situation, and just endured what she said. It's not that I don't want children. I know it's tough, but I want to experience parenting and show my parents their grandchild. But without Edward's cooperation, it's not possible. After hanging up with Monica, I was so exhausted, I fell asleep on the couch. "I'm home." I woke up to Edward's voice returning from work and hurriedly got up. "Sorry I fell asleep."
"It's okay. You've been working hard too, Sophie. You could have just stayed asleep since you're off tomorrow."
Saying that, Edward started preparing dinner. I'm sorry I didn't start dinner, even though I got home first.
"It's okay. You're eating too, right?"
"Yes, I'll eat. Let's cook together." Edward, who'd been consistently kind and capable with household chores since we got married. If only we had a child, it would be perfect. I couldn't help but sigh.
"What's wrong? Did something happen?"
Edward noticed my mood right away. I had never talked to Edward about the calls from Monica. I thought he would dislike it even more if he knew. But that day, seeing me down, I thought it was a chance. I hoped that if I shared my worries, Edward might become more positive. I was tired of the pressure from Monica, and finally decided to talk about it. Actually, I got a call from Monica.
"You're close enough to call each other? I didn't know that. What did you talk about?"
Yeah, she calls quite often. It's mostly the same thing every time.
"The same thing? Like what?"
I don't want you to be upset, but to be frank, she wants to see her grandchild. I'm 30 now, and I've been thinking about having kids too. Then Edward stopped cooking.
"And? What did you say, Sophie?"
He asked in a somewhat stern tone, as if he didn't want our situation to be known. I was planning to talk about wanting kids soon, but seeing Edward's reaction, I couldn't bring it up. I said we don't have plans yet. Edward seemed relieved. Caught between Monica wanting a grandchild and Edward not responding, I regretted bringing it up.
That's good. Try not to say too much extra stuff. By the way, there's a party at a client's house soon. Would you like to come, Sophie?
Yeah, sure. I'll keep my schedule free. After Edward changed the subject, the topic of children didn't come up again. Back in college, we always slept in the same bed after dinner, even in the same bedroom. I couldn't ignore the emotional distance between us. Then came the day of the party. Knowing it was at a client's place, I dressed up more than usual. Edward introduced me to the people there one by one.
This is my wife, Sophie.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. You sure have a beautiful wife, Edward.
This man was the CEO of the company Edward works with most. I was glad I went to the salon and bought new cosmetics for this day. Edward didn't seem to mind the compliments I received from the clients. At the party, there was a noticeably young woman. She was petite, fair-skinned, with a youthful face. The woman ran up to someone from the client's company. Dad, are you done yet?
Sorry about that. This is a couple from our client's company. This is my daughter, Jacqueline. She's only 20, but she's here to gain some work experience.
Nice to meet you. She seemed unfazed by the adult gathering, perhaps due to her youth. I noticed Edward blushing as he greeted her. Jacqueline also greeted my husband while holding his hand. Feeling uneasy, I quickly left the area with Edward and Jacqueline. The next morning, Edward woke up earlier than usual. When I went to the living room, he quickly hid his phone. Good morning. You're up early. Do you have something to do?
Yeah. Work's been busy. I was just handling some important communication. I might be coming home late for a while.
Edward's behavior seemed unnatural. A woman's intuition, perhaps, but I remembered the incident at the party last night. I see. Don't push yourself too hard. Suspicious as it seemed, there was no concrete proof of my husband doing anything wrong. I watched Edward leave, planning to be more vigilant about his actions. After that, Edward started leaving for work early in the morning and returning around the time I went to bed. He even began working on weekends, something he had never done before. This was unusual since it hadn't happened in our marriage until now, and I felt suspicious. I wanted to check his mobile phone, but he was rarely home, making it difficult. I decided to follow him. Just like a scene from a drama, I followed my husband, hiding in the shadows. Edward stopped at the station and looked around. It seemed like he was waiting for someone. Then, finding the person he was meeting, Edward ran in that direction. Sure enough, Jacqueline was there. They say a woman's intuition is sharp, but I didn't expect it to be this accurate. Jacqueline, young and not particularly beautiful, was dressed in brand-name clothes that didn't suit her. Yet to Edward, she must have seemed attractive. Despite being married, he was infatuated with a woman 10 years his junior. Edward and Jacqueline walked arm in arm, entering a hotel together. I was appalled by their thoughtless behavior. I decided to keep evidence and took photos of them with my phone. After taking enough pictures, my hands began to shake. The betrayal by Edward, who I had been with for so long, hurt more than I imagined. Seeing him enter a hotel with another woman was damaging. Suppressing my sadness, I decided to go home. I resolved to confront Edward when he returned. That day, he came home drunk. Pretending to be asleep in the bedroom, I watched Edward's actions. Thinking I was asleep, a cheerful Edward started making a phone call. Listening in, I heard things I wished I hadn't.
Thanks for today. Can't wait to see you again. I love you. You're the best. Can't wait for the hotel next week. You're nothing like Sophie. Of course I love you more.
The person on the phone must have been Jacqueline. Hearing Edward's words, my anger reached its limit. I stormed into the living room and snatched the phone. bold of you to cheat so openly," I shouted, and from the other end, I heard a silly laugh. "Sophie's scary. No wonder you're being cheated on." Laughing without remorse or understanding of her actions, Edward, suddenly sobered, stood there pale. Seeing him so enamored with such a woman filled me with pity. "Edward seems to prefer me. Why don't you divorce quickly and give him to me?" Confident as she was, Jacqueline dared to say that. Realizing the call would only fuel more taunts, I ignored her words and hung up. I made the disheartened Edward sit down and told him everything I saw today. "I followed you today. I have photos of you entering the hotel. That's enough evidence for your infidelity. What do you want to do now?" Then Edward deeply apologized.
"Give me one night to think. I'll go to my parents' house today."
He said he would go to his parents' house, weakened by his adulterous position. "Going to consult Monica, by any chance?"
"No, that's not it. Let's talk tomorrow. I think it's hard for you to have me here,"
he said, and left the house, with only the essentials, like he was fleeing. Despite Edward being in the wrong, his words made it seem like I was the culprit. Wounded deeply in a day, both my heart and body were exhausted. I curled up in bed, crying, unable to sleep properly. The next day, Edward returned home with Monica. Monica seemed to have heard the story from Edward, her face angry. Probably she came to apologize for Edward's infidelity. As I greeted them, Monica began shouting, "It's all your fault for not having children all this time." "What?" Her completely unexpected accusation left me stunned. I couldn't understand what was being said to me. "Edward has decided he can't have children with you, and has found a wonderful woman instead. It's terrible for you to blame him. The one at fault is you for not having children." I was speechless at these cruel words. When I looked at Edward, he seemed defiant, criticizing me along with Monica.
"Since getting married, you've lost your charm as a woman. It's impossible to stay together any longer."
This was entirely different from his apologetic demeanor yesterday. Perhaps he's become bolder with Monica by his side. Then Edward and Monica together demanded an immediate divorce. Seeing the two of them justifying themselves, I felt it was all so foolish. Why had I been troubled over these people? I realized there was no value in staying with Edward. "All right then, fine by me, let's get divorced," I said with a smile, and they seemed stunned, as if things had gone smoother than they expected. "But you'll have to pay me compensation. I'll consult my lawyer about the amount, and from now on, communicate only through our lawyers. Please don't contact me directly. Goodbye." I kicked them out and closed the door. Alone in the quiet room, I felt a sense of relief. A fresh start at 30. Well, it's better than being with them. Later, I was able to claim compensation through my lawyer and filed for divorce. Edward paid the compensation I demanded. I also claimed compensation from Jacqueline, but she seemed not to have money issues and paid up quickly. To think that an 8-year marriage would end over something like this. The happy marital life I had vanished in an instant. But I had no regrets. I packed my belongings, excited for living alone again. Choosing a place on my own was fun, making me glad I got divorced. Decorating the room to my taste without considering Edward's preferences. While placing a cactus I had bought on a whim, I was positive about enjoying my single life. 2 years later, I was enjoying my new life. My job was going well, I had been promoted, and I was busy every day. I felt more confident alone than when I was with Edward. Perhaps it's because I'm aware of my independence. During this time, I got to know Alex through work and started dating. Alex accepted that I had gone through an unhappy divorce and wanted to be with me. Thinking of marriage and considering my age, he was positive about having children. My life was completely different from the painful situation 2 years ago. and I was living happily. Then I received a call from an unknown number. Thinking it might be work-related, I answered just in case. Hello?
Sophie, it's me. Do you recognize me? It's been a while.
It was Edward calling. Memories of the divorce flooded back, giving me chills. What? There's nothing to talk about now, is there? Bye. As I was about to hang up, Edward began to speak in a panicked tone.
Wait, I really need to talk to you, Sophie. Can we meet in person?
Absolutely not. After what you did, I don't even want to see your face.
I'm really sorry about that time. I know you can't forgive me, but there's something I need to talk to you about in person.
No matter how much I refused, Edward wouldn't give up. His voice was nasal, and he even seemed to be crying. I was fed up and decided to meet Edward to talk. When I arrived at the cafe we agreed to meet at, I found a haggard Edward sitting there. What did you want to talk about?
It's been a while. I wanted to see you. Look, I want to get back together with you. That's why I wanted to know how you feel.
I don't understand. I have no desire to get back together with you. Is that all you wanted to say? I'm leaving.
Wait, remember my wife, Jacqueline? She turned out to be a terrible devil.
Edward grabbed my arm as I tried to leave, forcing me to sit. Ow! Let go!
My wife's father's company committed tax evasion and went bankrupt. Then she dumped all her debts on me. She wouldn't stop buying brand names. I can't take this life anymore. Mom has collapsed from stress and is bedridden. I realized you were the best, Sophie. You're the only one for me.
Smiling at Edward's semi-crying state, I said, And? Surprised, he asked.
What do you mean, and?
So what do you want to do about it? Coldly, I replied.
Well, I thought to escape from my wife, maybe getting back together with you is the only way.
Edward's eyes were unfocused, whispering something under his breath. What is this about? You just want my money and someone to take care of you, right? It's your responsibility. You and your mother came yelling at me for a divorce. You're getting what you deserve.
Please don't say that. Help me.
Edward broke down crying and lunged at me. Just then,
What are you doing? If you touch this woman any further, I'll call the police.
It was Alex. I quickly hid behind him.
Who are you? I'm her fiancé.
I had been nervous about meeting Edward alone, so I had asked Alex to accompany me. If something happened, I wanted him to help, but I never expected this. Edward was intimidated by Alex's larger build.
Then I'll call the police. No, I'll leave now.
Saying that, Edward left the cafe with tears and a runny nose.
Are you okay? You're not hurt.
Yeah, I'm fine. After this incident, I consulted the police about Edward as a stalker and got them to warn him. They patrolled around my house, and I was able to feel somewhat safe. Later, I married Alex, and we had a daughter. Our life is hectic with childcare, but we're managing well together as a couple. My parents were overjoyed to finally see their grandchild. Seeing our daughter loved by everyone makes me believe I did the right thing. Though my first marriage failed, I am happy now. I heard rumors that Edward had fled the house he shared with Jacqueline and disappeared with Monica. I sympathize with Edward for being deceived and swindled by a younger woman, but it was the result of his own actions. Wherever they are, I hope they learn from their mistakes.